Welcome to Eggs and Issues, a monthly business program presented by the Portland Community Chamber of Commerce. Listen weekday mornings to Ken and Matt on the WGAN Morning News. Eggs and Issues is supported by presenting sponsors Bank of America, Martins Point Healthcare, and Unum, in cooperation with Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, First Light Fiber, and WEX. And now, please welcome Portland Community Chamber of Commerce President Jack Lufkin.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Eggs and Issues. Got a fantastic program here for you today. As you just heard, my name is Jack Lufkin, and my day job is with KeyBank, although I don't know, my chamber activities are starting to creep into that realm as well. We do have a fantastic presentation today. We have with us CEO Craig Larrabee of Jobs for Maine's graduates. But before we get into the presentation, as has become my custom, I want to give you a couple of updates. The first and foremost, I want to provide sort of an ongoing conversation update that we have on a proposed ordinance that Mayor Strimling put forward that would have significant implications on your business or organization. For those not familiar with the ordinance, it is essentially a citizen's proposal that would mandate all businesses in the city of Portland, regardless of size, to institute a prescribed paid sick leave policy. This entails businesses to pay every employee, full-time, part-time, seasonal, et cetera, up to 48 hours or sick days of paid leave every year. The Health and Human Services Committee held a public hearing on this issue 2 weeks ago, and dozens of people showed up on both sides of the issue, including significant representation by chamber members and testimony by our own CEO and board representatives. Tonight, the committee will be holding a work session on this issue. They will not be holding public comments. It's just an informational session. Our goal is to continue to make sure that you're aware of this and that it's being deliberated at the Health and Human Services Committee. And as business owners, managers, HR representatives, it's critical that your feedback is that you understand the ordinance and that you give feedback to either the Health and Human Services Committee or the council directly. So if you have any other questions on this issue, you can get more information at the Chamber's website. We are conducting a survey of our members to see where they stand on this issue, and you can also email us at publichealth@portlandregion.com if you want to share your thoughts. So onward. So upcoming events. Next month, June 1st, Governor LePage will address us in his final, act as governor in front of this audience. So you won't want to miss that. Heads up, it typically is very well attended, so as soon as you see that invitation come out, please do register for that. Also coming up next month is a Kegs and Issues happening on Thursday, June 21st at 4 p.m. at Aura, featuring Vet's First Choice CEO, Ben Shaw. For this event, the Chamber is partnering with Startup Maine to kick off their 3-day summer kickoff event. Join us for a toast and the unveiling of a one-time collaborative brew called Bowie 207, made by 4 member brewers, Foul-Mouthed, Mass Landing, Foundation, and Gagan Brothers Brewing Companies. This beer will be available at select member establishments. On behalf of Bowie Local, $1 of every pint sold will be donated to the Good Shepherd Food Bank. The last event that I would like to mention is the second annual Ignition Awards, brought to you by Propel and the Chamber. Propel is a volunteer-based organization that unites Portland's young professionals, businesses, and community organizations. This event serves to recognize both small and large local businesses for all their success they've achieved over the past year and for the positive impact they've created within our community. This year, a new category has been added, the Young Professional of the Year, which seeks to highlight an individual who has gone above and beyond with their work in their industry or community organizations. If you know an outstanding local business or young professional, please submit your nominations online by visiting their website or go to propelportland.org/ignition-nominate. Hopefully that's, oh, it is, that's on the book. Good, thanks. All right, moving on, I'd like to recognize and welcome our newest members to the Chambers. These following organizations have joined the Chamber in the past month: Be Good, To Dine In, Derigo Strategies, the Resinair Group, I hope I said that correctly, Resinair Group LLC, Community Dental, Baristas and Bites, Jewish Community Alliance of Southern Maine, DeSormis Management LLC, and Startup Maine. Welcome to the Chamber. We look forward to many years of engagement and working with you. Now I would like to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors for making this event possible. Our presenting sponsors are Bank of America and Martins Point Healthcare. Our cooperating sponsors are Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, WEX, and First Light. Our reception sponsors are Verrill Dana, Clark Insurance, and Key Bank. Our parking sponsor is CV and Mahar Engineers, and Headlight Audio Visual, with their amazing team, provides us with all of our overall production support. The Forecaster is our print sponsor, Maine Biz is our e-media partner, and WGAN is our radio sponsor. WMTW-TV is our broadcast sponsor. We would also like to thank our special community partners, Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Spectrum Healthcare, the University of Southern Maine, and Southern Maine Community College. AAA Northern New England and Springborn Staffing provide support for our Tomorrow's Leaders and Entrepreneurs program. This allows area high school and college students to attend Eggs and Issues. With us today, we have students from the USM and Southern Maine Community College. If you're here, please stand and let us recognize you. The Portland Public Library is our FMI sponsor, who provides more information after this event, which you'll receive later this week. Baker Newman & Noyes sponsors our Community Corner program. This month's Community Corner is the Susan L. Curtis Charitable Foundation. Founded in 1971, the Susan L. Curtis Foundation is a Maine nonprofit working to ensure that economically disadvantaged Maine youth from across the state develop the individual character, self-confidence, and skills essential to become independent and contributing citizens. Close friends of Governor Kenneth and Pauline Curtis created the foundation in memory of the Curtis's young daughter, Susan. Since her passing, over 17,000 Maine youth from all 16 counties have experienced a transformational shift through the foundation's youth development programs at Camp Susan Curtis. Members of the Susan L. Curtis Charitable Foundation, please stand and be recognized. We have Melissa Silly, Lori Southworth, Dr. Elise Corbett, and Sean Slaughter. And now, without further ado, on to today's presentation. Just a reminder that we will have a question and answer session at the conclusion of the remarks. We have 3 microphones situated around the room, and we would ask that you come up to a microphone to ask your question. Please state your name, the organization you're with, and go ahead and announce your question. And we will give a warning that, when we only have a couple minutes left, we'll have one more question. So today's presentation is a special one for the Chamber. Our presentation today focuses on the Jobs for Maine's Graduates, the JMG program, and its President and CEO, Craig Larrabee. For the past 25 years, JMG has helped more than 40,000 Maine students graduate from high school and build a path toward a continued education, a meaningful career, and productive adulthood. JMG shares unique connections to education, employers, and community leaders that are essential to creating a pipeline of talent for a skilled Maine workforce. Our speaker today, Craig Larrabee, has 25 years of leadership experience in the nonprofit, education, and workforce development sectors. Throughout his career, Craig has championed innovative, student-centered approaches through public-private partnerships to achieve results-driven outcomes. So without further ado, I welcome Craig Larrabee to the stage.
Thank you for that great intro. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Show of hands, how many of you are familiar with JMG? Amongst friends. First of all, I want to thank the Chamber for this wonderful opportunity to share our story, and it is quite a story I have to share with you today. Especially want to thank Bill Williamson from Bank of America for making this happen today, and all the support from Bank of America for JMG and the students we serve. Bank of America has dedicated hundreds of thousands of dollars into our program and investment, and also volunteered hundreds of hours in our classrooms helping our young people prepare for the future workforce. And I just want to recognize Bill and Bank of America for all they do. I want to congratulate the Susan Curtis Foundation for the hard work that they do. We're very proud to be partnering with the Susan Curtis Foundation. Same belief, the importance of making a difference in young people and what that's going to mean for the future workforce. So, this story that I'm very proud to share about Jobs Maine's graduates, this story is very special to me. I actually started with Jobs Maine's graduates back in 1993. I was one of the first 18 people hired. And in 2006, I had the opportunity to become the CEO of Jobs Maine's graduates. So I've seen us since our infancy, and I see where we are today, and I see where we're going, and how important the work is that we are doing in partnership with local schools, the private sector, state government, the federal government, community organizations, and all pulling in the same direction to make a difference for young people in our state. And why are young people in our state so important? If you haven't realized, or if you've been reading the papers or watching TV, we need every single young person in our K-12 educational system, in our higher educational systems to become successful. We are not getting ready to face an emerging workforce crisis. We are in the middle of an emerging workforce crisis. So the work that JMG does in bringing a lot of different resources to the table to help young people is the story that I would like to share with you today. Up here, you'll notice what our mission is. Again, to be identifying young people that might have some challenges in life. These are students that might be facing obstacles. These are students with promise, though. These are students that can make a difference, and we have some data to share with you a little bit later that shows the difference that they're making here in the state of Maine. To put things into perspective, Jobs Maine's Graduates is one of 35 states that operates a Jobs for America's Graduates model. We are a standalone nonprofit here in the state of Maine. We were created by the Maine legislature and Governor McKernan back in 1993 as a private nonprofit. Not a lot of people know this. This is about us getting the word out through events like this. But for the last 22 years in a row, Jobs Maine's Graduates has been awarded the best in the nation out of the 35 states that operated Jobs for America's Graduates program. Thank you. And that's been on the hard work of our specialists, our teachers that work in the schools throughout the state of Maine, and the hard work that they do in mentoring our young people and making a difference in their lives. We're the third largest in the country. Governor Edwards in Louisiana and Governor Holcomb in Indiana have larger programs than we do, but we're working to beat that. This is what we looked like in 1993, kind of a ragtag group of people. There's a guy in the back with a lot more hair named Craig Larrabee back in 1993. This is when we got started, and then this is what we looked like this past summer at our summer training. So the growth of our organization has been pretty incredible. And how are we growing? How are we growing this company? When I became the CEO, actually when I started in 1993, I was a classroom teacher for JMG in Washington County, worked my way through the organization, and had the privilege from the board of directors to be offered the CEO position in 2005, 2006. At that time, we were about a $2.9 million organization working with about 1,800 students statewide. And Governor Baldacci brought me into his office and said, you know what, Craig, you know what the biggest challenge that you have with JMG is you're the best kept secret in the state of Maine. And it was one of those moments in my professional career, I'm like, that's a challenge. And we're going to prove how effective this program is, and we're going to look for additional investments because there are more and more kids out there that need this sort of program. So as we started building this public-private partnership known as Jobs Maine's Graduates, we had the good fortune of hiring a wonderful young woman and leader, Kim Lip. And if Kim could just stand. Kim's our Executive Vice President at JMG. I'm going to end up paying for that later today. Kim led an effort to really make us a true public-private partnership. In 2005, 2006, most of our funding was coming from the state. Through Kim's effort and leadership, Kim has actually brought in over $26 million of private investment into JMG since 2006. How do we bring in that investment? How have we seen increases in our state appropriation year after year? How have we seen the federal government, whether it's through Health and Human Services, the Department of Labor, and other agencies, want to invest in jobs for Maine's graduates? I'm going to tell you why. Currently, if you look at a state map, this is the area that we're serving. And I go back to 2005, 2006, we had 43 programs. Today we have 104 programs. And I'm very proud to announce, this is the first time publicly, that we've received additional funding to add another 25 programs this summer. We have to have these people up and hired by August 1, so if you know anybody that's interested in coming to work for JMG, please let me know. Our models started in the middle school, and our most common model is our high school model. We have college success programs, and we have 7 statewide programs. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time on that. First of all, we developed the middle school model for our national organization. Shell Oil Company bought that from us and now operates in 12 other independent states in our country. Our most common model is our high school model, where we're providing dropout prevention in school to create transitional services. Just looking at the time here. 3 years ago, Justin Alfon and the governor came to an agreement. Just think about that for a second. Came to an agreement that we needed to expand the JMG services into college. We have a number of young people that are not making it through to get their degree attainment. With the help of President Cummings and many others, the case was made to the legislature and funding was put forward to JMG to help create this continuum of support where we can actually start working with the young people as early as 6th grade, provide a continuum of support for these young people all the way through college, all the way to career. How do we do that? We have these wonderful people called JMG specialists that work in our schools, work in middle schools, work in high schools, community colleges, universities. They're employees of JMG. We run a performance-based organization. My teachers get increases based on how well their students are doing. Are they increasing their GPAs, increasing their absentees? Are they matriculating and graduating and going on to higher education? So we've developed this culture about being student-centered and doing what's in the best interest for our young people, and the results are pretty remarkable. These are some of the common barriers of the students that we work with. A lot of our students are coming from economically disadvantaged households. Family and social issues is a major issue, high absentee rates, and they're underperforming when it comes to academics. This is the continuum of support that I was talking to you about earlier. The ability for us to be able to work with these kids year after year to make a difference in their life is very critical. One thing that we've learned in the last 3 years when it comes to this continuum of support and getting our young people to get a higher ed credential is that very few of our students in Maine, and this is not just JMG students, there's not a lot of students that are taking this linear approach that I'm going to graduate from high school, I'm going to go get my 2-year degree and get my 4-year degree and then go to work. It's not happening that way in today's world. This linear approach is difficult when it comes to finances, when it comes to life events going on in a child's life or a young person's life. So we're actually developing this college success model on the idea that a persistence of that relationship over time is going to pay off for these young people to get this higher ed credential. And why is the higher ed credential important? Because when we look at the research, a lot of the jobs that are available now and going on that will need to be met going forward need some form of higher ed credential. How many of you are having a hard time finding a plumber right now or an electrician? Right? So getting these young people the credentials that they need to be successful. In the JMG program, we focus on 4 things: career preparation, leadership development, social engagement, and civic activity. We also concentrate on everything from financial literacy, leadership, as I mentioned earlier, bringing the employers into the classroom. It's really about a public-private partnership in that JMG classroom, bringing the local community in to tell their story and get these young people to be inspired. The data that I was sharing with you earlier, this is some of the data that we track with our students. Our students, again, these are students that are facing some significant barriers in their life. 92% four-year graduation rate for kids that have gone through the JMG program. We work with all of our kids for at least 1 year after high school. We're looking to lengthen that relationship here shortly. 87% of our kids are either working or in college or a combination of both. And over 56% of our kids are going on to some form of higher education. That's up from 33% about 10 years ago. Some recent data that's coming out, we haven't announced publicly yet, but we have some data that shows that if a student with a disability goes through our program, they're actually graduating 10% higher than students with disabilities that don't go through a JMG program. This is a key one when we look at investment from the private sector. Again, reminding you all, these are students that have some significant barriers. They're earning 14% more than the general population 6 years after graduation. I'll just let that one hit home for a second. These are students that are facing barriers that, with this intervention, we can get them to be productive, resilient, and be productive employees, citizens of our state. I hate these terms, at risk, marginalized. Those are terms that we don't want to be having our students be referred to. We've had our school partners come forward recently and say, you know what you're doing for these young people is critically important. But what you're teaching, we need all of our kids to have the JMG experience. And in some of the smaller schools in our state, JMG is now a graduation requirement for all kids to take the JMG program, no matter if you have a barrier or not. Because people are realizing the soft skill development, the career preparation, getting young people thinking about their careers at an earlier age is so critically important to helping Maine fight this workforce crisis that we're facing. I don't know if you've seen this data before, but if you have, I'm sure you're as anxious or scared as I am in terms of what the demographics of the state of Maine look like. We're projecting fewer young people in the state of Maine, more elderly in the state of Maine. What is this going to mean for our future workforce? And when I think about the promise of our kids that we represent and the promise of our organization, that call of action, if you will, of time, talent, and treasure is really what JMG is about right now. We are growing. We're going to continue to grow. There are more kids that need this program as an overlay to their public educational journey. If you're not aware of Maine Spark, make yourself aware of Maine Spark. The work that Ed Cervone does is critically important. He's an exceptional leader here in the state of Maine. The data says it all. We need more young people to be getting higher ed credentials. We have a deficit right now, and we need to be thinking, I hate the cliche, but we need to be thinking outside the box. We need to be in a place of taking action. I don't know how many more legislative studies are going to solve our problem in the state of Maine. We need to get to a place where we're in partnership with public education and businesses. JMG can help be that vehicle to make change. I do get concerned here in our state of how fast we can embrace the change process. I know in my company, and I do refer to JMG as a company, not as a state agency. I know in my company, we are working diligently on figuring out what the behaviors that we need to do internally, what changes we need to make in our behaviors, my teachers' behaviors, my mid-managers' behaviors, to get more young people into our programs, to get more young people work experiences, getting them higher ed credentials. We need to be figuring this out as a state as well. I get concerned about the pace of change in the state and whether we're going to fall further behind or whether we're going to get to a place of taking action and getting serious about this workforce crisis. If we don't solve this workforce crisis, it's going to impact the state economy, local school budgets. It's going to impact overall, as you can imagine. I believe that in the next gubernatorial debate that happens, I think 8 out of the first 10 questions should be what these governors are going to do about the workforce issue we have in our state. That's how critical I think this work is. We are approaching our 25th anniversary. On September 28th, Governor McKernan, Governor King, Governor Baldacci, and Governor LePage are hosting our 25th anniversary gala. We're expecting about 900 people. If you would like to come and see the show, it's going to be quite a show. It's an opportunity for us to highlight alumni that have gone through our program since 1993. It's an opportunity for us to thank our business partners, to thank former legislators, current legislators, to hear each governor explain why it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, how important a program like JMG is, and why we all, as individuals, organizations, foundations, corporations, state government, need to find vehicles like JMG to continue to put time, talent, and treasure in, because it's so critical that we're making a difference to keep every young person in school and on a path to be successful. There are a couple quick stories I want to share with you in terms of things that just make me feel good about the work that we're doing. I have the opportunity every once in a while to get to know some of our students and the stories that they share with us. And when you put these students in front of funders, great things happen. We once had a student tell their story in front of a gentleman named Paul Cologne. And Paul started tearing up and turned around and gave me a check for $500,000 and said, keep doing what you're doing. We recently had an anonymous donor who sent me a letter saying, my niece and nephew went through your JMG program, and here's an investment. And we've received over $3 million from that anonymous donor in the last 5 to 6 years. We've had the Harold Alfond Foundation, the Peter Alfond Foundation, TD Bank. The list goes on and on of people that have volunteered their time and put financial investment similar to what Bank of America has been doing. The Peter Alfond Foundation actually has given us money to start programs in Puerto Rico. So JMG now is operating 3 programs in Puerto Rico. The GE Foundation recently invested in us. We now have 2 programs in the greater Boston area, and we're looking to expand our presence in the Massachusetts area. But first and foremost, we want to expand our presence here in Maine. I believe we have the testimonials. I believe that we have the data that shows that this is an effective program, worth the investment, and it's very much aligned to what the needs of our state are. So that's my story. As you can tell, I'm very proud of my company. I do consider myself a former JMG student. All those barriers that you saw up there earlier, those are things that happened to me when I was growing up in high school. I fortunately had somebody, a family friend, that grabbed me by the ears and said, you're not going down this path. And when I think about what our JMG specialists do, whether it's putting an arm around a student when they need it, or sometimes kicking them in the rear end when they need it to keep them on the right track, that's part of who we are and what we do. We are not just teachers. We are sometimes the family. Sometimes we are the guidance counselor. We do whatever it takes, and we have that sort of attitude within our company. So please, thank you. On behalf of the 7,000 kids we're working with today, the 40,000 we've already worked with, and the 10,000 we're hopefully going to be working with next year, thank you for listening to our story, and thank you for your support of our program. Without our partners, this would not be possible. So thank you so much. Are there any questions?
I'll ask one. Hey, Craig. Mike Borg from MEMIC. We are also celebrating our 25th anniversary, so 1993 was a pretty good year, I would say.
Yes.
I just want to share a brief experience I had with some JMG kids a couple of weeks ago, doing some mock interviews at Unum. Unum has been very involved in your program, of course, over the years. I met an 8th grade boy who told me, we sort of began the interview, which was supposed to be a mock interview about a scholarship. But the conversation went on, and he's in 8th grade, and he said, yeah, I used to be engaged. And I paused for a second. I said, you're in 8th grade, right? He said, yeah. He said, but she broke up with me and moved to Texas. And he said, all my exes live in Texas. Dead serious. This is what, the kid was amazing, actually. But that sort of, struck me as there are some challenges if you're thinking about getting married in 8th grade. Maybe those are some things to overcome. But I think he actually has a future that's pretty interesting. My question was, I was intrigued about your comment regarding Puerto Rico. And I wonder if JMG could, in fact, help create a pipeline of people and students and workers from places like Puerto Rico. And have you thought about that?
Great question, and thank you for bringing up Unum. Unum has provided over $1 million of support. They also host what we call the largest corporate sleepover. Can you imagine 200 young 8th graders spending the night at your offices? Just think about that for a second. And then having your employees volunteer their time and mentoring them, and then getting them to go see the city of Portland, and for them to exhibit communication and decision-making skills at that early age is just remarkable. So your questions are really good, and we have been putting some thought into it. So we were hoping to launch a much larger scale program in Puerto Rico, but because of the hurricanes, we've had to slow down that process. And that conversation, I think, is going to be picking up some speed once we get a stronger foundation in Puerto Rico. So I think to your point is we do need to keep every young person in our system heavily engaged and get them to become productive citizens, get them to become part of the future workforce, but we also need to be bringing people into our state to make the difference to keep our economy prospering. Yes.
Hi, I'm Peter Mills. I just wanted to ask, what are the levels of cooperation that you typically ask for from the public sector? In other words, when you approach a junior high school or a high school system, are you getting some money from the public sector, or is it just space or in-kind services, or is it all of the above?
Great question, Peter, and good to see you. So we asked for, when we first started in the 90s, this program was fully being paid for by a federal grant. And as we transitioned, with people help from Senator Mills, the state started picking up some of the costs. We asked our school partners to start picking up some of the costs, to have skin in the game. There's a number of superintendents in the state of Maine that will say JMG is a moneymaker for them. For every student that we're keeping in school, that's about a $9,000 investment back into their local budget based on head count. What we're trying to do, and what we most commonly do, so I'll give you an example. BIW came forward and said they wanted a program at Morse High School. We'll pay for it for the first 2-3 years. You prove that you can make a difference, and then we'll go and ask the school if they'll contribute some dollars towards it. So what we try to do is have that opportunity to show the school that we're the real deal, that we're a heavily accountable organization, prove that our program works, and then once we've proven the program works with data and testimonials and talking to other stakeholders, we make that case to the local school board, the local superintendent, just like we're making the case with the governor and the Maine state legislature and the private sector. So, our school situation right now is quite interesting. Our public educational system is quite interesting when we look at the demographics, when we look at local control and what local control really means here in the state of Maine. But those partnerships, we would not get access to these students if we didn't have strong partnerships with our local schools. So it's an important part of the pie.
Good morning. My name is Susan Morris, and I have a two-part question for you. I am wondering if you can clarify for us when we should be thinking about you in this season right now where we're looking at, are we doing internships? Are they paid internships? Where does JMG fit in when we compare an opportunity for a young person compared to doing an internship? And then secondly, or connected to that, is the idea that although I no longer work in the hospitality industry, we could be in a crisis this year, not just in July and August, but we are finding that the fall is a very productive time, but that is when young people are back in school. So I'm just wondering about those areas. And also connected with the idea of a paid internship, I know I get confused on at what age are people actually able to legally work? And what is the protocol for having young people in the workforce? I know I threw a lot at you, but it's all connected. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. So currently, we're partnering with over 400 different Maine businesses, and everything's about relationships. It's about it's about a relationship with our students, it's about a relationship with our stakeholders, it's about a relationship with individual businesses and forming pipelines to help businesses meet their workforce demands and provide learning opportunities for our young people. There's a difference between internships, paid internships, apprenticeships, and what we will do is we'll sit down with local businesses or statewide companies and try to figure that out in terms of what is the best fit for that company, what is the best fit for our kids, in providing those opportunities. And it really starts right from the start. It's a relationship with guest speakers coming into our classroom, sharing with our kids opportunities and thinking out loud with our students on what the possibilities are. Our kids sometimes have these perceptions of, if I go to work at this company, this is what I'm going to do. They don't realize the 50 other jobs that are there and how that might be a good career path for them. So we're going to be making some major announcements this fall at our 25th anniversary gala in terms of how we're going to create this long-term persistence effort for those young people all the way up to the age of 24 to get more of them a higher ed credential. We're also going to be talking about how we're going to be formalizing our workforce piece going forward in terms of having a youth development staffing company as a possibility for JMG from a statewide perspective, adding more capacity so that we can do that outreach to more companies to find out what that right fit is. Is the right fit you hosting young people for job shadows? Is the right fit for you hiring them through an internship or through an apprenticeship program? Is the right fit for you to hire them full-time and provide some level of training and also help that young person pay for that higher ed credential? So there's not a one fit for everyone, if you will. It's really working, grinding this out one business at a time. And sometimes with associations, we can do more than that. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. That was fantastic, and we really appreciate that. So don't miss an Eggs and Issues by subscribing to the Chamber's newsletter. Please, if you are not signed up for the newsletter, please contact Chamber staff to do that. And as always, you can stay up to date by connecting via Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And stay tuned to the Chamber's website, and you can actually see a video of this morning's presentation. So again, I'll remind you that we've got the Kegs and Issues coming up in a couple of weeks, and then we have the governor on June 1st. So with that, have a fantastic rest of your day, everybody. Take care.